Good afternoon and welcome. This is lunchtime news on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Zayman Ratnayaka. Here are your headlines for this afternoon.
Construction commences of 350 megawatt LNG combined cycle power plant. What fate befell local sugar importers? The human-elephant conflicts claims another life in Hambe Gamua. US blocks Myanmar junta attempt to empty $1 billion New York Fed account.
On to those stories in detail. Construction of Sri Lanka's first 350 megawatt LNG combined cycle power plant commenced today under the auspices of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa in Kerawalapitiya.
According to the chairman of the Ceylon Electricity Board, Vijitha Herath, the power plant will generate 350 megawatts of electricity. A total expense of 40 billion rupees will be borne to construct the power plant. The chairman further added that the power plant will contribute 200 megawatts of electricity to the national power grid within 2 years.
Attending a forum held in Hambantota yesterday, General Secretary of the JVP Tilvin Silva expressed his views regarding the functions of presidential commissions.
If a commission is able to remove cases filed at the High Court and even disregard orders handed down by the Supreme Court, the justice system becomes defunct. If a president can override the justice system of the country by simply appointing a commission, that's what is known as a dictatorship. The ruler's whim and fancy will be made into law. Gotabaya Rajapaksa has decided to imprison and release whomever he wants. This is a case of the ruler's interpretation of the law being converted into the nation's law.
Propaganda Secretary of the Frontline Socialist Party, Pubudu Jayagoda, raised concerns over the sugar scam which was revealed recently during an event held yesterday.
They claimed local entrepreneurs would be uplifted. All this time, it was 14 traders in PETA who brought down sugar to the country. All 14 of them are Sri Lankans. On the 13th of October 2020, the government issued a gazette slashing the tax on sugar from 50 rupees to 25 cents. Pyramid Vilma had imported 7,000 metric tons of sugar and had stored it until the gazette was issued. Once it was issued, the stock of sugar was released and Vilma gained a massive profit. The 14 traders from PETA nearly went bankrupt. Between the 13th of October 2020 and the 13th of January 2021, Pyramid Vilma had brought down 102,180 metric tons. The 14 traders together had only brought down 71,366 metric tons. The Pyramid Vilma multinational corporation had brought down 59% of the total volume of sugar. Its stake was at 3%. The total loss of tax revenue suffered by the government over the past few months is 12 billion rupees. Pyramid Vilma robbed 12 billion. The price of sugar did not go down either.
Chairman of the Balangoda Urban Council, Chamika Jayamina Vimalasena, who was removed from office by the governor of Sabragamur, took office once more following a court order.
Chamika Jayamina was appointed as the chairman of the Balangoda Urban Council with the support of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party following victory at the provincial council elections in 2017. On the 15th of January 2021, the governor of the Sabragamur province, Tikiri Koppe Kadua, removed the chairman from his post through a gazette, citing a disciplinary inquiry is underway. Subsequently, Chamika Jayamina Vimalasena filed a case at the Ratnapura High Court against the matter. Thereafter, the court decided to invalidate the gazette until legal proceedings conclude. The court also ordered the petitioner to be restored in his office until court proceedings conclude.
In some tragic news, veteran journalist and former diplomat Bandula Jayasekara passed away earlier today. The late Mr. Jayasekara, who was diagnosed with syndrome blood cancer and was undergoing treatment. He was 60 years of age at the time of his demise.
As a senior journalist and broadcaster, Mr. Bandula Jayasekara continued to give a voice to the voiceless. He was the host of Newsfirst's Pathikada program, a lifelong involvement in print media and later as a broadcaster with the Capital Maharaja Group. Mr. Bandula Jayasekara was vociferous in terms of addressing the woes of the populace. He also served as the chief editor of the Daily News. As a diplomat, Mr. Jayasekara was a proud flag bearer for Sri Lanka, serving in countries such as Canada, the United States and Australia. Mr. Bandula Jayasekara, may you attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana.
A group of Sri Lankans residing in Italy staged a protest opposite the Sri Lankan embassy in Italy, demanding Sri Lankans living abroad be repatriated.
The protesters demanded that they be repatriated to Sri Lanka at the earliest.
ගුවන් යානාවල ඉඳන් ගුවන් සේවාවේ ඉඳන් ලංකාවේ ගෙදරට ගිහිල්ලා
Relief must be provided to the people in terms of their quarantine services from the time of arriving in the country until reaching their houses. The government must formulate a mechanism for that. We will continue the struggle until a certain relief is provided.
ලබා ගන්නා තෙක් අපි මේ අරගලය ඉස්සරහට ගෙනියනවා කියන සහතිකය අපි දෙනවා.
According to Sri Lanka police, operations are still underway to locate the decapitated head of the woman whose corpse was discovered in a travelling bag in Dam Street, Colombo. Media spokesperson of police, DIG Ajit Rohana, said a special operation was carried out yesterday along the Kalani River from Mutwal to Ambatale. DNA samples of the deceased woman have also been gathered to confirm her identity.
අපිට ලැබී ඇති තොරතුරු අනුව මේ කාන්තාව විසින් පරිහරණය කරන ලද එක්තරා බෑගයක් තවමත් අතුරුදහන් නො තිබෙනවා.
One bag is still missing. It is reported that another bag used by the female is missing. Investigators suspect the decapitated head would have been thrown into the Kalani River by the killer. A special mission was conducted around the Kalani River yesterday.
ඒ අනුව ඊයේ දිනේදී කැලණි ගඟ ආශ්‍රිතව විශේෂ මෙහෙයුමක් ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනු ලැබුවා.
CCTV footage of the suspects donning a different attire boarding a bus was released on social media today.
ඒ වගේම මෙම බස් රථයේ රියදුරුගේ ප්‍රකාශයක් සටහන් කර තිබෙනවා.
Statements have been recorded from the bus driver. The bus had stopped in Palmadullo for dinner. At around 11 p.m, the suspect had exited the bus in Buttala. Further investigations are still underway.
යමක් සිදු කර ඇද්ද යන කාරණා පිළිබඳව ඒ වගේම තවදුරටත් මේ පරීක්ෂණ ඒ ආකාරයෙන්ම සිදු කරනවා.
The ever-persistent human-elephant conflict claimed yet another invaluable human life in Ratabalagama, Hambegamuwa.
The victim was a 62-year-old individual who was keeping watch of the paddy harvest he had reaped. The marauding elephant which claimed the life of the individual had later devoured the harvest. Area residents lament confrontations between humans and elephants in Ratabalagama are commonplace. Meanwhile, residents of Tevanuara, Karualagaswawa bemoan the preschool building of the area has been destroyed by a wild elephant. According to our correspondent, damages had also been caused to the pipeline and water tank of the preschool. Villagers state the wild elephants linger around the village during the afternoon and encroach on the village as night approaches. There are around 25 students at the preschool, which functions through the efforts of the parents.
රෑට හරක් යනවා වගේ තමයි අලි යන්නේ පාරවල් දිගේ අලි 4 දෙනයි 5 දෙනයි පේලියට අලි යන්නේ හැමදේම අතැල්ලා දාලා මං වනගත වෙන්නේ ඒ කියන්නේ කැලෑවලට යන්න වෙලා තමයි තියෙන්නේ ඒ තරම් අලින්ගෙන් ගොඩක් කරදරයි.
The chief of the air staff of the Pakistan Air Force, Air Chief Marshal Mujahid Anwar Khan, paid a courtesy call on the Defence Secretary General Kaman Gunratna at the Defence Ministry earlier today.
The discussion between General Gunaratne and the Air Chief Marshal Khan was centered on matters of bilateral importance and mutual relevance. The meeting was held on the sidelines of the events organized to celebrate the 70th Sri Lanka Air Force anniversary. Sri Lanka Air Force Commander Air Marshal Sudarshana Patharan was also present at the meeting. General Gunaratne and Air Chief Marshal of the Pakistan Air Force exchanged mementos to mark the occasion.
The Attorney General today directed the Court of Appeal to inquire from the Defence Secretary and the Inspector General of Police regarding the alleged importation of 6,000 swords to the country. The petition regarding the matter was filed by the Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit. In his petition, the Archbishop of Colombo had pointed out investigations by security forces revealed that 6,000 swords had been imported by Mohammed Zafras at the behest of one of the suicide bombers named Mohammed Insaf Ahmed, of which 600 swords had been distributed in the country, but security forces have not revealed specific information of the remaining 5,400 swords thus far. The petition is to be called up again on the 31st of March. In more news, the Olowell Beach is one of the most pristine beaches in the east coast of Sri Lanka. By today, area residents lament the Olowell Beach is threatened by coastal erosion owing to several unsustainable development projects.
The most imminent impact of coastal erosion at the Olowell Beach is on the Southeastern University of Sri Lanka. Students of the university point out the protective walls of the university had collapsed on 2 occasions so far. The use of breakwaters to prevent the erosion has not brought about the desired results either.
හැබැයි ඔලුවිල් වෙරළ කාදනය වෙන එක ස්වභාවික වේශනයක් නෙමෙයි කිසිසේත්ම මොකද අපි දන්නවා මේ රටේ එක එක ජාතියේ සංවර්ධන ව්‍යාපෘති ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා.
This coastal erosion is not a natural phenomenon. We know that a number of development projects are underway in the country. These projects are improper and suffer from a lack of planning. Environmental feasibility reports are not sought before commencing development activities. As a result of the erosion occurring in the area, part of the university, including its student quarters, will be destroyed in the coming days. Acres of land belonging to area residents have already been eroded. The sea has begun encroaching into the country day by day. What is the reason for this? Olowell is one of the most beautiful beaches in the country, but it has been destroyed due to development projects. Authorities constructed a fisheries harbour in Olowell to uplift the lives of fishing communities. By today, the fishermen are helpless and the beach is destroyed. The Olowell harbour cannot be utilised at all now. The entrance has been blocked as a result of a huge sandbank. Coastal erosion of this manner is a result of the improper construction of the Olowell harbour.
ඒකේ දෙපැත්තට යනකම් කිලෝමීටර ගණනාවක් මේ විදිහට මුහුදු කාදනය වෙන්න පටන් අරගෙන තියෙන
විශ්වවිද්‍යාල පරිපාලනය විසින් මීට පෙර දාපු වැට හැබැයි දැන් ඒ වැටේ කෑලිවත් හොයාගන්න නැති වෙනවා. ඒත් අපිට පේන්නේ මේක නිකන් මේ ගඟකට කපන ඉනි වගේ වැඩසටහනක් යන විදිහට තමයි අපිට පේන්නේ.
Parliamentarian of the Samagi Jana Balawege, Tissa Attanayaka, visited the Askiri Mahaviharya earlier today.
MP Attanayaka called on the Mahanayaka of the Siam sect, Most Venerable Warakagoda Jnanaratne Thero. He thereafter called on the Registrar of the Askiri chapter of the Siam sect, Most Venerable Madagama Dhammananda Thero. This is a country with many resources. When we got the independence, a certain amount was requested to be invested. However, they were not in favor of this. A strong opposition that is not criticizing the government every day should be there for a country.
In international news, Myanmar's military rulers attempted to move about $1 billion held at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York days after seizing power in early February. The transaction then stalled on approving the transfer until an executive order issued by President Joe Biden gave them legal authority to block it indefinitely, according to foreign sources. Now, meanwhile, YouTube has removed 5 channels of Myanmar's military-run television networks hosted on its platform in the wake of the coup in the Southeast Asian nation.
A YouTube spokeswoman speaking to foreign media said that the platform has terminated a number of channels and removed several videos in accordance with its community guidelines and applicable laws. According to the United Nations, at least 38 people were killed in anti-coup protests in Myanmar on Wednesday in the bloodiest crackdown yet on peaceful demonstrations against a military coup.
News from China. China's National People's Congress, or the NPC, will discuss a proposal to overhaul Hong Kong's electoral system to ensure patriots run the territory when it begins its annual meeting in Beijing later today, in what could be the biggest blow to the city's democracy since it was returned to Chinese rule in 1997.
A spokesperson for the Chinese National People's Congress said yesterday the rubber stamp body had the constitutional power to improve Hong Kong's system and that the electoral structure needed to fully implement the principle of patriots governing Hong Kong. The reforms are expected to give Beijing even more control over how the territory is governed. The meeting typically happens in early March with nearly 3,000 delegates from all around the country representing provinces, autonomous regions and special administrative regions of Hong Kong and Macau. According to foreign media, 15 of 47 Hong Kong pro-democracy activists charged with subversion have been granted bail after a marathon hearing, but the entire group remains in custody pending an appeal.
YouTube's chief executive has said the platform may lift Donald Trump's suspension if the threat of real-world violence decreases.
YouTube's chief executive, Susan Wojcicki, said the company will look at government warnings and violent rhetoric to determine whether it's safe to lift the suspension. Following the Capitol Hill riot on the 6th of January that left 5 dead, Trump's account was suspended. YouTube said he had violated their incitement of violence policy. During an interview, the YouTube chief said, and I quote, "It's pretty clear that right now where we stand, that there is still that elevated risk of violence," end quote. Wojcicki clarified that the former president's conduct had not led to a full ban on the platform. The company operates under a 3-strike system and an account must receive all 3 strikes within 90 days to be permanently removed.
In some intriguing tech news, Elon Musk's SpaceX has successfully landed one of its Starship prototypes at the end of a high-altitude test flight.
Plus 30 seconds, Starship 10 has liftoff. It's headed to 10 kilometers.
Serial number 10, also known as SN10, touched down in Boca Chica, Texas, in contrast to its predecessor SN8 and SN9, which crashed into the ground. The next generation space vehicle put down heavily on its extended legs. A fire then developed around its base, and 8 minutes later, SN10 blew itself apart on the landing pad.
In some tragic news from New Zealand, 3 powerful earthquakes struck off the coast of New Zealand earlier today, triggering tsunami warnings that were later stood down.
According to foreign media, evacuation orders were issued for residents living in coastal areas of the North Island after the 3rd strongest earthquake hit. The National Emergency Agency warned of a tsunami threat along the east coast. There were reports of chaos in some towns as hundreds of people tried to reach higher ground. However, a few hours afterwards, authorities said the largest waves had passed and the residents were informed they could return home but were warned to stay off beaches.
The second day's play of the 4th test between England and India is currently underway in Ahmedabad. Batting in their first innings, India were 105 for the loss of 4 wickets a short while ago.
In India, always in it.
India resumed play on day 2 with 24 runs for the loss of 1 wicket. Cheteshwar Pujara was the first one to be dismissed today for 17 runs.
Again an appeal, and it's been given this time. And
skipper of the Indian team Virat Kohli did not bother the scorers.
He's bowled tirelessly as Ben Stokes. And once again, he's gone for a duck. It's 41 for 3.
Earlier on, England skipper Joe Root won the toss and elected to bat first. Accordingly, England scored 205 runs in 75.5 overs.
Gap between bat and pad. That's gone up in the air. Should be another wicket. Oh, not too far from Ajinkya Rahane.
Johnny Bairstow scored 28 runs, while Ben Stokes, who registered his 24th Test half-century, scored 55 runs.
Oh, edged wide of second slip. Much better. That's the kind of Stokes we've come to see.
Ollie Pope scored 29, while Dan Lawrence scored 46 runs.
Was right on target. That's out of desperation, but it's a good shot.
For India, Akshar Patel took 4 for 68, while Ravichandran Ashwin took 3 for 47. Mohammad Siraj took 2 for 45.
Oh, that's a wicket. Is that his...
Rahane. Oh, that's gone. How straight was that? Straight enough for the umpire.
Appeal, and this time it's been upheld by Virender Sharma.
In response to England's first innings total, India lost the wicket of Shubman Gill without bothering the scorers.
Shubman Gill, are they going to review it?
In line, hitting in line. Hitting umpire's call.
And with that, it's a wrap of lunchtime news on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I've been Jaiman Ratnayaka. Have yourself a nice afternoon. Take care and stay safe.